Okay, scrape my elbow, jumping the fence, creeping through the grass, camouflage, looking for them. At 20 for whoever know what verse that's from. What song is that verse from? But again, welcome to No Cap, man. Let me see if I can get this together a little bit. Yeah, you coming to the frame a little bit more. We live, man. We live. And as promised, brought the board out, but I had to bring it out for the first occasion for something like this. It's football season, man. Next Thursday, first game. You know what that means? Church becomes more optional. There's a lot of money getting gambled. Livelihoods on the line. Fall weather is coming. Cuffing season is up next. And you didn't know, it's honestly going to get more dangerous outside too, because October is the most dangerous month of the year. You don't believe me? Look it up for yourself. You'll find out why. Or you'll find out the facts behind it. And then it's up to you to figure out why. But with all that being said, man, a lot of people about to be tucked away, because with football season also comes 2K season. And with 2K also comes a whole bunch of other games getting dropped. And that means if you ain't got a man by now, you best go find you one because it's about to be over. Folk about to be hidden away, about to be tucked away. So best of luck to you this cuffing season. But I wanted to do this yesterday, but a lot of things happened where would have sounded a little crazy to try to put this together and then the very next day got to change your mind. So I try to wait till as close to the season as possible to put this thing together. Because of course, don't want to just talk about social issues, things that we can improve on. Also want to talk about sports, music, entertainment, things of that nature, man. And there's no bigger driver in the US than football. Hypothesis on what you think's about to happen, projections for every part of the game, just the reason why the title is the title, man. It's a drug. And it's just a part of the fabric now. Football replaced baseball as America's pastime. And we'll see how long that lasts. But for this episode, I wanted to get into it and basically give a little insight on the game with sports gambling becoming more prevalent. It kind of waters down the product just a little bit, just because you separate the diehard fans from the gamblers, and when you try to deal with gamblers the way you would treat a diehard fan, you end up in a terrible position. So you got the two being mixed into the same group, where now you're getting the diehard fans to gamble more, where it's less about just enjoying the game and more about if I can predict this and make money off of it. And the people who are gambling on it, they don't, there's less of them becoming fans than there are fans becoming gamblers, because folk don't really care to understand the ins and outs, the X's and the O's. It's more so, hey, this is a popular name. This is what the stats say. I'm gonna bet on that. If you don't do that, you end up in a situation where we are now, where it's volatile outside. You can catch 9 passes for 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, but somebody bet for you to get 100 yards, you don't get that 100 yards. We don't care if you won or not. You lost me some money, so I lost whether the team won or not. Ooh, it's a dangerous game, but on to it. Not really gonna get into award projections. I'll probably end up doing that maybe next week, just because I wanted to get just a tad bit closer, figure out who's doing what, any last injuries that might pop up, but get into going division by division, what I feel the teams are gonna do. I'm not gonna break down the schedule because that'll take too long. Trying to go team by team, going through the schedule, where the wins and losses are coming from. Just more so based on the roster, based on the trajectory of all the moves being made and the vibes around each of these teams. Go through it and basically pick who I feel is going to be most successful from each of the divisions and each of the conferences. Get into the playoffs when the playoffs get here, because again, it's too much up in the air. And although it could be fun to make these projections, starting quarterback get hurt, that end the whole season. Now everybody looks stupid. No need to look stupid. I'm just make the decisions today, and then we'll figure out tomorrow. So as you can see, I broke it down. Now, let me turn it a little bit. Got the AFC at the top, NFC at the bottom. Do the graphics, but graphics are impersonal, and then you just going through slideshows, boop, boop. Nah, I want to be able to look at it and then be able to cross check and go back and forth between what's going on, because it's easier for me. It flows better for me. So let me scoot that over here, kind of stay in the camera at the same time, slide out so folks can see what I'm talking about. But we start with the AFC North. I ain't even got to do that. I basically put the board together based on how I feel like the teams are going to perform. And it's as simple as I can get it. So the team at the bottom of each of these lists, the team I think is going to be the worst. Team that's at the top, team I think is going to be the best. Boom, easy. Go right through it. So AFC North, of course, the Ravens, because if Lamar Jackson plays, the Ravens win the division. Got the Browns at the bottom just because anybody is paying attention to what's going on with Shedeur Sanders and with Cleveland. Yeah, they don't look like they're interested in winning. So yeah, they'll be top 5 in the draft next year. But then going through the situation between the Steelers and the Bengals, I picked the Steelers because personally I feel like the Steelers offense would be better than the Bengals defense. That's pretty much the best way to make the determination. The Steelers are gonna have one of the best defenses in the league, and if they can score 21 points a game, they'll be pretty well off. The Bengals are gonna have to average 30 a game just to be competitive. They're not stopping the nosebleed. Terrible. Like there's so much wrong with the team. Secondary is lackluster. Linebackers are subpar. Then you look at D line, you got a rookie that you have high expectations for, which is hard for a rookie. And then you got one defensive player who's halfway out the door anyway. It was close, honestly. It was closer Browns and Bengals for me than it was Steelers and Bengals. But yeah, we'll see how that turned out. The NFC North, I got the Lions just because the Lions got one of the top 3 rosters in the league easily. People talking about, well, what about the interior of the O line? They've already had the plan in place for if a situation like that happens. Yeah, they had an unfortunate retirement, Frank Ragnow, but they already had drafted a player first round last year, and then they drafted O-line this year. O-line is one of those situations where even if you start off the year rough, it's pretty easy to kind of start gelling and then be a completely different unit by the end of the year. Got the Packers at second over the Bears just because I like the Packers' offensive mind better. I like Matt LaFleur better than I like Ben Johnson. And a whole lot more weapons. There are 5 receivers deep, 2 tight ends deep, 2 running backs deep. O-line is better. And then when it comes to defense, their best defensive players are better than the Bears' best defensive players. Traded for Micah Parsons, which is his trade from Dallas to Green Bay was really what held up me doing this video yesterday because that changes the entire complexity of what the NFC looks like because it raises the Packers' ceiling to Super Bowl contention compared to they were guaranteed playoffs, and it raises their floor from they could potentially miss the playoffs to what their ceiling used to be is now their floor. Easier. The Bears, I don't like how the Bears get that. The situation with Caleb Williams, I was not a Caleb Williams fan when he was drafted last year. And I didn't like how the Bears built the team around him last year, where there are few cities in which you're going to have to play a specific style of football. That, like, it doesn't matter who is new, what kind of process you're trying to implement. The fact that you in a cold city and you don't play in a dome, football is a cold weather sport. You're going to have to run the football. So when I saw Chicago went 4 receivers deep, terrible O-line, and a used running back, I'm like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. And then they don't have any stars. There are no stars on Chicago's defense. They have a few solid players, a few good players, and then, but yeah, Offense might look better than it did last year, but yeah, that's not it for me. And I got the Vikings last because the lowest of keys, Brian Flores has been doing work team wise with the defense, but they pretty average group. And he's been making lemonade out of raccoon pits and salt. Yeah, man has been making it make sense, even though if you look at the roster, it's like, and then JJ McCarthy, not a fan of JJ McCarthy. The interesting thing about football is anybody who's been watching it long enough, you understand that there's a certain political side where if you play quarterback and you white and you just give a little bit of hope that you might be something, they're quick to draft you first round. All you have to do is give them a little bit of an excuse to take you, and they will. For example, like Tyler Shuck, Louisville. Old man, injury prone. Those are two of the worst things you can be is an old quarterback and an injury prone quarterback. But he's a great interview. Drafted top 60 pick. You don't draft on interviews unless you are at that position and you are a certain shade. Because Jackson Dart, another highly talented player with terrible flaws. He has a great arm, but it's terrible the minute you put any pressure on him. You touch him one time, that's going to ruin the rest of the game. Big arm, and in college, didn't win a thing. Bad sign because great quarterbacks, you have to be either a super freak athlete and then they'll let you slide depending on what the rest of your roster looks like, or you have to be a winner in order to get drafted and be anything. He's not a super freak athlete and he never won anything, but you got the right complexion for success, I guess. But on to the next division with AFC South, of course, the Texans, because easy. Yeah. The Jaguars see a bounce back for Trevor Lawrence. And a new coach, a coach with more variety in the offense, actually giving them a fighting chance to succeed instead of letting them get beat up behind a terrible O line. The Travis Etienne pick, never a fan of it before, but as you can see, he's not a top 10 running back in the league, and they're starting to finally treat him as such. He's a complimentary back, and with Tank Bigsby in there from Auburn, now they get to treat Etienne like third down back, like a supplementary back, like he is. Titans, number one overall pick, Cam Ward, and then just having a solid defense and having one star player, the borderline superstar, Jeffrey Simmons. So, solid enough defense, but really put them above the Colts simply because the Colts don't have a quarterback you respect. And if they don't have a quarterback you respect, then that pretty much. Yeah, another situation where if you the right shade, you will get paid because Daniel Jones is terrible. But the Falcons, messing with the Falcons in the NFC South, I like their roster the best. Biggest issue was the pass rush. Drafted 2 first rounders to fix that. Got your young quarterback coming back from last year, finally taking hold of the team. In the worst case scenario, if anything happens, you can trade Kirk Cousins to get more draft picks next year. The Panthers, I like the Panthers right after Atlanta. And that really was the hardest decision for me, or whether it was going to be Panthers or Falcons, because the Panthers have the same type of synergy where you build on the year before. And the young, small quarterback all of a sudden doesn't look so small. and he's playing well. Actually has a roster built around him now, and there's a little bit of respect being given to the defense, seeing as they finally paid a player to come play defense. Then I got the Bucks, simply because Bucks are always an injury or two waiting to happen. I feel like they were at a high the year that they beat the Eagles, embarrassed them in the playoffs. Like that was their ceiling. And with Baker Mayfield, high risk, high reward, and the defense is, I wouldn't say getting old, but getting stale, where you don't have the superstars, you don't have the horses really driving it. You brought in, what was that? Dude from the Jets. I mean, you gotta look that up. What is dude's name? Always, he was pretty subpar with the Jets, and yeah, that didn't help them out at all. Hassan Reddick. I'm not even gonna look it up. Hassan Reddick. Yeah, you relying on him to basically be your pass rush. Good luck. And then the undisputed bottom of the division, the Saints. We're not gonna talk about the Saints. Right to the AFC East, the Bills, Josh Allen. Enough said. And I got the Patriots after them just because Mike Vrabel is gonna have a defense. This was the second debate I had between the Patriots and the Jets, because Aaron Glenn and the Jets are gonna have a great defense as well. Like which one is gonna really thrive more? Having Christian Gonzalez in the secondary mixed in with Harold Landry in the D line for the Patriots, or are you riding with Sauce Gardner in the secondary and Quentin Williams for the D line for the Jets? Because for quarterback play, I'm not sold on either one. Both have potential, but potential doesn't do anything for you in the league. And at the bottom, I got the Dolphins. And yeah, that's, well, off season, and people say you got the worst practice in recent memory as the sign of things to come. NFC East, Eagles or Commanders, people disputing that. There's no dispute for me. It's the Eagles. They let a lot of guys go on defense because they drafted those guys' replacements, and now it's time to move on. Got Nolan Smith coming into the start lineup now. You got the white cornerback. Yeah, Cooper DeJean, white cornerback. He's going to be starting now. And then Calais Ringo, actual players that you drafted do come start. Jahad Campbell that you just brought in. You want these guys to take the place of the guys that left before. And Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are those guys now. So get it how you live. Jalen Hunt, for sure. I picked them because the offense is probably one or two in the conference as well. Jalen Hurts. Then you got 4 receivers and Mechie, Dotson, Brown, Smith. Still got the tight end there. Jalen Hurts or Saquon, so easy. Commanders, really not sure what the defense is going to look like. But they have a high ceiling, and it's still iffy over there. Giants, they're a little bit better, but I didn't pick them to be last simply because the Cowboys, I don't understand what the Cowboys do. O-line is terrible. Running back room is underwhelming. Defense is, you traded the best player on the team. How the Cowboys are being run is the reason I picked the Giants over them. Yeah, the Cowboys like they're trying to lose on purpose. Let's bring you to a conversation, right? Because like Cowboys fans don't care about anything in life. Like they'll see mediocrity and they'll disagree with something, but still pay for it every year, and then complain about it. I'm like, you're not changing anything because you're paying for it anyway. You're complaining about something that you going to pay for. It's like going to a restaurant saying, "Man, this food sucks," and then you go back the next day to order the same thing again. Stupid. But on to the West. Chiefs, my homeboy. Chargers, Harbaugh. Broncos, Sean Payton. Solid defense. Then Raiders at the bottom. Just yeah, Raiders got to be one of the top five least talented teams in the league. Like Max Crosby is the best player, and he is not a superstar. Like he's a high star player. Like if you playing Madden, high 80s. But yeah, no superstars on the roster. Ashton Genty, you drafted a running back, and you don't have an O line. Yeah, I don't even say pray for us. I don't get my hopes up or anything. I'm fan is short for fanatic. I'm not a fanatic for the team. That's a team I like, but I'm not getting my hopes up, bro. We're gonna be trying. And last, the NFC West. This one probably gonna be the biggest surprise. I got the Cardinals winning that. Just because you got a defensive head coach. And then now all the picks that you made are all on the field at the same time. The most important to me is Will Johnson. Travis Hunter was a great cornerback. In my opinion, Will Johnson was the best cornerback in the country last year in college football. Injuries made him drop to the second round. Reminds me of Champ Bailey. You'll see how it plays out. And then the offense is just so solid. It's hard to get around. They'll be able to run the football. You have what, four receivers that you can mess with. One of the top three tight ends in the league, and then Kyler Murray. At some point, you have to play good, or they just gonna cut your black ass. And the Seahawks mess around and win the division. Folks don't believe in Sam Darnold. I do. He's always been talented. Problem is, coaching and the organization are terrible. That's pretty much how it works for quarterbacks. If the organization sucks, the quarterbacks are not going to be too far behind. Have a defensive head coach, great defensive players. Seahawks probably got the best secondary in the league, honestly. They can pass rush, they'll be solid. Two solid running backs, three receivers, be in a decent position. The Rams, because the Rams have a great defense, especially with the D line. But yeah, I'm not sure about that offense. You got a quarterback that has a permanent back issue in a game where they're trying to hit him in his back. So, and the backup is Jimmy G. The Rams could win the division, or they could get the number one overall pick. Yeah. And then last, I got the 49ers. They don't have any receivers to talk about. They got a tight end, half a running back because he's hurt, one great offensive lineman, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm Trent Williams, and these are the Temptations kind of situation. And then the defense has lost so many pieces. Like at some point, you can't scheme to be great all the time. You can scheme and have a great scheme and still end up being just good because you don't have the horses. They've been bleeding players for a few years now, especially with Ward leaving his last offseason. Doesn't look good. But these were the picks that I had for these divisions and for these conferences. Now the interesting part is, like, I'm not even gonna try to belabor it too long. I don't want to hold it too long, but when it comes to the playoffs, of course, um, all the teams that are at the top, of course, you win your division, you can make the playoffs. I'll start with the NFC just because it's easier to my hand, but of course, got the Packers making the playoffs easy. Commanders making the playoffs easy. But then the conversation gets interesting because it could be the Bears, it could be the Seahawks, it could be the Panthers, which is interesting. But for me, I'm gonna pick the Seahawks simply because the Panthers, even though they got decent players on defense, mm, I don't really know if they have the kind of defense that could stop anybody consistently. And then with the AFC, of course, Jim Harbaugh does not miss the playoffs often. Then Mike Tomlin is automatically going to be over 500. And then the last spot is like, dang, is it Bengals? Is it Jaguars? Is it Broncos? I'm going Jags simply because the Bengals have, again, one of the top three offenses in the league, and then probably have the worst defense in the league, even worse than the Saints. And then you look at what team is likely to have the best record in football. I haven't looked at the schedule. The schedule is pretty much going to determine a lot of that. But if I had to guess, without looking at it, I mean, it never hurts just to just say the Chiefs. And the worst team in football, yeah, the Saints kind of ass. But we got the way so you can see it. That's pretty much the board right there. Like I got the Ravens and the Steelers making the playoffs out the AFC North. I got the Texans and Jaguars making out the AFC South. The Bills making out of the East, and then the Chiefs and Chargers making it out of the West. NFC, you got the Lions and the Packers out of the North. Got the Falcons out of the South. The Commanders and the Eagles out of the East. And if any team was likely to not make the playoffs out of the NFC, it'd probably be the Commanders and the Panthers get in because there's a chance that their O-line breaks down and then Jaden Daniels is hurt and then you just SOL. And then out of the NFC West, the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Like injuries are going to be, especially as you move forward in time now, injuries are more of a factor now than they were before because they're more prevalent, more likely to happen. With one more week, and then with a softer training camp and with softer mini camps, softer practice schedules, you never know who's going to pop up with like a soft tissue injury or whose body's going to break down just because they don't work out according to what the season's going to be like. And there's so much fluctuation when you're dealing with who's going to be playing this week and how social media and psychological factors like that are impacting people's play because we no longer in the generation where you expected to just show up to work and then do your job. Now it's more about how I feel and are the situation and circumstances conducive for me to succeed. It's not I'm going to show up, I'm going to do my job just because it's my job. It's but are the conditions good for me to succeed? Regardless of your conditions, you expected to perform, but maybe not. Before I get to the video, I want to explain a little bit of my perspective of looking at this. So, when you're talking about football, right? The Philadelphia Eagles have pretty much broken it down to its simplest form, where the team that wins in the trenches is going to win the game. Just 9.5 times out of 10, if you win in the battle in the trenches, you're going to win the game. Only thing that could change that is like penalties or turnovers. Penalties and turnovers are the only things that can prevent a team from whooping somebody's ass and still losing. So when I'm looking at teams that are going to be successful, it's all right. First thing, what do your O line and D line look like? Can you protect the quarterback? Can you rush the passer? Can you stop the run? Can you run the football? Almost all of these teams are invested heavily in their O line. The Eagles and the Lions have the best two in the league. The Falcons, they just had a right tackle injury, but their O line has been pretty solid since shoot, year or so after Matt Ryan left. The Packers always invest in O-line. Commanders, they traded a lot of parts, and they did a lot in free agency to get their O-line together. Seahawks invest in their O-line. The Cardinals, theirs is the most iffy, where they drafted high, but now they're waiting on those draft picks to hit and see if they're successful, i.e. Paris Johnson. The Chiefs, of course, the Chargers, yes, but they had their injury at left tackle, but they drafted a left tackle and put him at right tackle, so they should be able to adapt. The Bills had the least sacked quarterback last year, so regardless of whether you know the names or not, the Bills are going to succeed. The Texans, they did a lot of reforming in order to be more consistent across the board instead of just having like one or two decent players. The Jaguars, they've invested heavily in the O line. The Ravens, of course, they invest heavily in the O line. And then the question mark is the Steelers, where it's kind of tough when you look at the Steelers because their brand of football is toughness, being able to run the ball. But Najee Harris was running for 1,000 yards, and he was running behind a porous O line. He was running for 1,000 like 3.5 yards at a time, which was it's tough to pull off. But they're starting to play a heavier brand where we're not just gonna have five O line, we're gonna put two tight ends in there. So we run around with 7 and 8 max protection, and basically, boom, we're gonna try to bully you down the field. And with the Bengals, even though they score a lot of points, their O line is terrible. Just fucking awful. The Colts are a team that have a great O line, but again, no quarterback. And that's part number two, where you're looking at the O line first, and you basically looking at who's going to win the battle of the trenches. The second thing after that, once you look at the O line, is what kind of quarterback play do you have? Because if you have a great O line and a great quarterback, it doesn't really matter what your defense looks like because you're going to be able to control the game. You can run the ball and keep it low scoring affair, or you'll be able to score whenever you feel like because teams aren't going to get to your quarterback. And then after you look at the trenches, whereas O line and D line and quarterback, the third one is, do you have any like playmakers on defense? If every team that's in contention is going to have those three. Great in the trenches. They have a quarterback that can play. So from a pretty good to great, the quarterback is going to win. They're always going to be pretty good to great quarterbacks. And then the third thing is they have playmakers on defense. And every team that I picked to even make the playoffs has playmakers on defense. So the Cardinals drafting Will Johnson and then Darius Robinson, bringing back Calais Campbell. Seahawks, Reek Woolen, dog, super dog. Then Desmond Witherspoon, another dog. Commanders, Bobby Wagner still out there making plays. Marshawn Lattimore. Eagles, everybody. Falcons, they 2 first-round picks, and then Jesse Bates is back there. The Lions, Ryan Branch, Kirby Joseph, Aiden Hutchinson is back. Then Jack Campbell, dog. The Packers, again, like, thank you to the Cowboys. Steelers, of course. Everybody up here, like, is going to have those three things. And then basically just comparing who's the best at each of these three things once you get to the playoffs. Which is crazy because once you get past those three things, then you're just trying to find like improvement in the margins because regular season football and playoff football is different where a regular season you need those three things mainly. And then in the postseason you need to be able to run the football. And then number 5, which is the consistent one, but more so in the playoffs, is discipline, turnovers, and penalties. But that's just my look on it, my take on it. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out because there are so many like unknown variables where you got young, unproven quarterbacks everywhere. You got coaching is more important than ever because you have less practice time trying to figure out whether we gel or not. Defenses are already going to be ahead of offenses simply because of the offseason structure and preseason games, but it should be pretty interesting. Love to see people's takes and see how people feel about these situations. And I always like to take my perspective and put it out there and then be able to reassess and then learn something new. Because even though it's the ultimate team game, 11 people playing together, football is relatively simple. It's not really about talent. It's more about, are you able to make a good decision fast? Which is, it sounds super simple, and it is, but it's simple but not easy. The team that wins is a team that can make the faster decisions and the better decisions. So I'm making the right decision before you can. That's all football is. No matter what your talent is, you can be more talented than me. If I make the right decision before you can, beat you. But I'm gonna have to come back to this and see it later, figure out, because chances are 70% of this is gonna be some bullshit. Cowboys end up #1 in the East or something. The Bengals win the AFC North. The Colts and Dolphins end up you never know, but I'll come back to it later. See y'all next week, man.